Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca. I am a homeschool graduate. That means I was homeschooled for most of my education, and I write about homeschooling and education and early education because that's my field at missmui.wordpress.com. So this series is about my homeschooling experience, how I feel about being homeschooled, just sharing my experience. Everyone's experience is totally different. It's not possible to group homeschooling under, like, to judge it by one person's experience, or to consider homeschooling as something that's very homogeneous, that's very unified, because it means a totally different thing to different people. So I'm just sharing my experience because sharing experiences is helpful. So if you're looking into homeschooling and considering homeschooling, especially in Malaysia, consider joining some homeschooling groups, because you will get to know a lot of lovely people, hear their stories, and see how they homeschool. But don't feel like you have to conform to any other person's version of homeschooling. What you make out of homeschooling is what you decide to make of it, what approach you decide to take, because there are so many different approaches. They are all great. It's like choosing between many great options, but what works best for you is what works best for you and you alone. I always say that because, you know, when I share about my own experiences, you won't get the same results if you do the exact same thing that I did, or use the same curriculum that my family did, because every child is totally different. What they get out of homeschooling is what they put into it a lot of the time, and what they bring to the table. So one of the questions that could come up is whether homeschooling, would I consider it to be academically like up to standard? Like, was homeschooling more academic, or was going to school more academic? And did I actually learn what I needed to learn as a homeschooler? Did I actually get a decent education? So I will be answering that in this video. So first of all, comparing my schooling experiences, 2 years in a traditional Mandarin school, what we call an SJKC in Malaysia. So one thing that's great about that kind of school is that the teachers, they do their job. The school does its job, you know, they provide materials to the children, they give you homework, you're supposed to do the homework. Like, there's a standard there's like, you know, you actually learn stuff. So the one thing that I remember learning most out of that experience was learning to speak in Mandarin. That would be the one thing that I think really benefits me, because I can actually understand the language due to the immersive environment. Later on, when I was studying overseas, I was in Ireland, and we did this course in language awareness. The professor talked a lot about immersion of children in schools that may be of a different language from their home language, and how much it really benefits them. Like, bilingualism, learning another language, being in an immersive language environment of any language, benefits children and has the potential to benefit them. So that's a great thing, and that's one thing that I took away that was good. So was going to school academic? I would say yes, the school actually did its job. But we wanted something different, and one of the main reasons why we decided to homeschool, which I talked about in my previous video, was that I wasn't having a very balanced life. This could be just my experience, maybe it wasn't anybody else's experience, but I didn't have like a balance between school and maybe doing some chores and doing and having time to play and relax, to have leisure time. It was like school, homework, tuition. Maybe it's because I came from a home where we don't speak Mandarin, so I needed more time to like study the language. So it was basically like a lot of the mornings I would be spending going to tuition, and then in the afternoon I would go to school, because it was an afternoon based school for those 2 years. And then I came home, and then I would have homework to do, and I would be doing that homework to 11. So it could be up to 12 hours a day or more of just doing homework. And because at that level, year 1, year 2, basically it's a lot of copying, a lot of memorizing. So that was my experience. Good or bad, whatever it is, that was my experience. And then so my parents kind of saw that, look, childhood is a time where you get to enjoy your life, where you are free from like all the responsibilities of adulthood, and they believed strongly in the importance of play, and they had always believed in that since we were very, very young. My parents believed that play is essential to children's brain development, that play is, it's really beneficial for helping them to develop intelligence, language skills, all kinds of skills. Children develop them and practice them and really grow when they are given opportunities to play. When you're not like controlling every minute of their time, they can make decisions, they can express themselves, and they can work out things that they're learning. For example, they hear language being spoken, they express, they use, they try that language out in play. It's how the brain processes information for children, and play is really so essential for learning. I'm an early childhood graduate, and so when I went to university and they were teaching us all about the importance of play, it really made a lot of sense to me, because that is what my parents kind of believed in from a young age. So they would take us out to play, we would go to the great outdoors, or maybe my grandparents would do the same, and we even had a playroom in the house. They set up like different activities for us to do, arts and crafts, things like that. So I was very involved in that from a young age, and that is part of our beliefs. And I think that it corroborates with what the research says, what good practice is, that play and leisure are very important for children. And they felt that at age 7 and 8 I should be spending more time playing than I was at that time, because of the amount of homework that I had to do. And mind you, it wasn't homework that required a lot of critical thinking, a lot of creative intelligence. It was more just learn, repeat, that kind of thing, basic knowing and understanding, which really doesn't go into like the higher order thinking skills that incidentally children actually develop through play. I hope this is making sense so far. But so switch to homeschooling. What was my life like? My life was definitely a lot more balanced, but it wasn't any less academic. In fact, I would say that based on my homeschooling experiences, I had an education that was just as rigorous and just as academic as anything that you could have gotten in a school. I'm not saying like one is better than the other, but I found for me that homeschooling was fantastic, that it worked really well, that I have absolutely no regrets, and I'm really glad my parents chose homeschooling. So my life was more balanced. For one thing, I would get up, I would do all the things that I needed to do. We would have 5 subjects to go through: Bible, religious studies, language, math, science, history, geography, and then we'd also study Mandarin. We'd also study our national language, which is Bahasa Malaysia, and I would also be studying music. I was learning the piano at that time. So we had a lot of things going on for us. We were learning a lot of things, both inside the curriculum and outside the curriculum. I found that the curriculum was really good. It was something that taught us everything we needed to know, but that taught us in a way that really introduced us to ideas beyond what you would expect to be taught to children. So for example, instead of just teaching English language and learning grammar and all those things, we went into etymology. We learned about the origins of words in the English language, and I remember vividly a lot of the lessons that were taught. So we were using this curriculum, and so we had a schedule. I would spend maybe 3 to 4 hours, maximum 4 hours a day doing actual like formal curriculum work, and outside of that I would have time to do a lot of enriching things. For example, we would go outdoors, we would do sports and cycling, swimming, we would help with chores, which is really, really good and really beneficial, which has given me a lot of skills. So we would learn how to cook, we learn how to do our own laundry, to help with mopping the floor. Basically, it's all hands on deck. And I would have time to play, of course, to relax, to do art, to spend time with my grandparents, to do music, to read. And as a child, I loved reading. So homeschooling really gave me the time with which to really have a lot of enriching experiences. A lot of experiences that I think have contributed to me as a person. And I would be learning a lot outside the curriculum as well. So the curriculum was great. It presented information in a really vivid way. It was like, they used videos and graphs and things and introduced and taught us things that were really up to standard. Because later on, when I switched from using this curriculum to go and do my Cambridge GCE O-level exams, I found that what we had learned all the while in things like math and language, history, geography were transferable to the Cambridge GCE O-level curriculum, and it was not a difficult switch. It was just a matter of changing a little bit about the spelling, changing the context of the math questions. Like, it was a bit different, but it wasn't too different. And I enjoyed it. I learned how to take notes, how to do referencing. A lot of writing was involved, so I learned how to write essays. And I would write not only for schoolwork, I would write for pleasure as well, because I enjoyed writing. So I would write my own stories, my own essays. So I was involved in a lot of learning beyond what was like required. And I think that is really important. I think that was really the key, that we had time to learn beyond what was set. Because in the school system, this is what is done. You set the expectations and children learn topics 1 to 10, and then you test them and then you move on. So children are just constantly just doing what you tell them to do. There's not really that opportunity to take the initiative, at least at primary school level anyway. There isn't that opportunity to take the initiative and to learn beyond the curriculum, to go and specialize in some area, to go and develop new skills, to push yourself. So if you always have somebody else set the bar for you, then it's not the same as, and it may not be as beneficial as you setting the bar for yourself, you taking an interest in developing a genuine passion for learning. And not only that, but learning on your own and learning successfully and becoming a confident learner, and someone who can be a self-directed learner, someone who has self-management skills, self-efficacy. These are all really essential things and help, I think, bring success later in life, like for example in tertiary education. Yes, that is one of the things that I really appreciated about my homeschooling experience, that my parents basically created an environment where we were free to learn. Do we give children the freedom, the time to learn, to push themselves? So at age 12, I decided that I wanted to learn the cello. So my parents said, okay, we'll get you a cello, we'll find a teacher, you go and learn the cello. And I did. And I really enjoyed it, and I was passionate about it. And I did cello for the next couple of years, even went overseas as a student and got the opportunity to play the cello not really professionally, like perform at various festivals and events and things like that, which were so beneficial, that have enriched me so much. You know how beneficial music is to children. I also learned the violin besides the piano. So piano is like basically what my parents said, you should learn this, it's good for you. They set the bar, basically. They arranged for us to learn it, whereas cello and violin were me really going beyond the bar and just saying, okay, I want to do more, I want to learn more, I have an interest, I have a passion, I want to take the initiative and take it to the next step. And I know so many homeschoolers who have had the opportunity to do that, who have found their interest, their passion, whether it's in classical music. I know homeschoolers who have recorded their own music albums, or homeschoolers who have become like successful artists, homeschoolers who excel in many different areas. Like for example in sports, there's a homeschooler who's like a figure skater. There's a homeschooler who is a professional pastry chef. I know homeschoolers in basically any profession and an area that any other person would be in. I've heard of homeschoolers who have gone on to study at like Cambridge and Oxford and stuff like that. So everyone has found their own path. It's not like the bar is only set a certain way and everyone must meet that same expectation. It's more like everyone finds and discovers what not only their passion is, but what they want to work towards. And that ability to that opportunity to learn, to challenge oneself, is really fantastic. And there are a lot of people who go to school and have that opportunity as well. So I'm not saying that it's something exclusive to homeschooling. It's not. It is just that we happen to often have a lot more time to do these things because, well, for various reasons, but you get the idea. So do I feel that homeschooling was academic? Yes, it was academic, but in a positive way, in an effective way, and not in a negative way where I felt forced or pressured or shamed or like just driven into something. I felt like for a lot of it I was driving myself and challenging myself to apply myself in new areas. For example, learning new languages. So when I was 10, 11, somebody gave us a CD. I think it was like Rosetta Stone and another CD. So I started exploring different languages, and I decided that I wanted to learn ancient Greek. So that's what I did. At age 10, I just learned ancient Greek on my own. I learned the alphabet, I learned some ancient texts, and then I had enough of it and I went on to do other things. But I think I learned quite a lot from that experience. So that was self-guided learning. At about age 14, I started my own business. I had an aunt who is an accountant, so she taught me accounting, and I ran the accounts for my own business. I calculated everything. Then I turned that business into a sort of social enterprise as well. So I had an opportunity both to try like profit-making business as well as a social enterprise-based business, which I later went on to learn about theoretically in university in Ireland, and we did courses in like business innovation and social entrepreneurship, and these things were like, you know, so relevant to me because I had that prior experience doing it in my early years, like during my secondary schooling years. What else did I do? I went on to learn more languages, and I went on to learn a lot of new skills. People always ask me, where do you have the time to learn all these skills? Well, I was a homeschooler. That kind of explains some of it. And academic learning doesn't have to be something that's miserable and forced upon children, because children are natural learners. They are curious about the world, and a good education system is one that's able to pique children's interest. When you're interested in something, you learn so much better than if you're forced to learn something. Let's say I give you a list of 10 irrelevant facts and you have to memorize them. They have no meaning to you, they have no relation to each other. You just have to learn them and then repeat them. That's all. But rather, if you are interested in a topic, you will absorb all that information about the topic. That's why people who love Star Wars are able to tell you every single detail about the Star Wars universe, because they have learned it. They have tapped into how their brain naturally learns, and they have managed to apply that to an area that they are interested in. Now that's just for personal interest. Maybe it isn't so useful in the real world, but you can take that interest-led learning, that curiosity about the world, and you can use that to learn skills that are relevant to real life, that have a lot of real life benefits. So we read about, like, for example, train developers, people who develop technology for trains, like in Japan. And one train developer was an avid bird watcher. He had that interest, he learned all about birds, and he used that, I think it was in Japan, to develop trains that were aerodynamic, that weren't going to make so much noise. So same thing. Where your interests are, you can use that interest and apply to something useful. Interests, play, curiosity doesn't mean that it's useless and inapplicable. In fact, there are so many applications. So I started out learning about YouTube at about age 15. and I started this channel just playing around and doing various things, Lego animation, things like that. Now I am a master's student in the field of media and communications, and I have all these years of experience behind me learning a little bit about practical media, hands-on media, which has helped me and which has corroborated with what I'm learning at an academic level. Children don't have to be miserable to learn effectively. You don't have to beat knowledge into children. You shouldn't. In fact, it's counterproductive. You don't have to make learning as miserable and boring and dull and repetitive as possible in order for them to become good learners. A good learner is not someone who is just doing whatever they're told. A good learner to me is someone who takes an interest, takes the initiative, and goes beyond what the curriculum expects of them and demands of them, but goes and finds something new. That's why in academics, when you get to a certain level, when you get to the postgraduate level, PhD, you're not learning what other people have discovered. A PhD candidate is required to apply themselves in a new way to discover knowledge that has not yet been discovered, to find that gap. It requires taking the initiative, and we should start children as young as possible taking the initiative in learning. So that's all for today. I will be talking more about this in a future video, but do subscribe and stay tuned. Check out some of the other videos on this channel, which are from all my interests like soap making and barbecue and all that kind of thing. And I will be back with you again shortly. Oh, and be sure to check out my blog, Miss Mui at WordPress, missmui.wordpress.com. Bye!